Hey, everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to Geekly Goods. You know who it is. It's your boy Leo Reviews here to review, I didn't forget, Terminator Dark Fate tonight, everybody, which stars, Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mackenzie Davis, all kinds of great actors, but man, there is a myriad of problems, and I'm going to dive into this review without giving you much spoilers. However, before I get started, guys, you know the drill. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and ding that bell as well to get notifications straight to that inbox. But guys, let's not wait too long for this. Let's dive right in, y'all. You know how it is. I want to start on the bad because there's a lot of bad and a lot of good. I guess I'm going to take that back. I'm actually going to start on something good. And I will say this. It was the best since T2. Yes, I'm talking better than Genesis. Thank God. What an atrocious film. Better than 3. Better than Salvation. This is the best since T2. But that's not a big leap to make, to be honest with you. It comes with a lot of problems, guys. And again, I'm not going to spoil, but I am going to dive into a little bit of what I thought about it. Now, the first 5 minutes, there's just something in the movie that shook me up so much that I could barely even get into the movie. Like, you start the movie with a big F you to the entire Terminator franchise. I mean, I'm like, wow, that is one stifling middle finger. But I thought it was a brave choice for the series, and I thought it could change things in a good way. Moving on, there was a lack of action. I mean, let's be real here. Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, especially T1, is a non-stop thrill ride. Wow, I am struggling tonight, y'all. Excuse me. Here, we had a lot of meandering. Like, I want to say the first act, tons of adrenaline. Diego Luna's character, his new Terminator, was extraordinary. You got to see a lot of his different moves and abilities. And then we kind of had the second third that was just a lot of character meandering. What do we do here? Where do we go from here? We've got to find Arnold. It was just a lot. So I will say there was a stifling lack of action. That is one of my new favorite words, guys. But a lot of, like, a big lack of action. That was probably my biggest problem with the film, is that there needed to be a lot more adrenaline. I'm talking more car chases, more building explosions. Like, that plane montage was not long enough, and there needed to be a lot more adrenaline to make the stakes a lot higher. Moving on to my next point, the visual effects felt a little lazy. I feel like the visual effects weren't all the way there. Like, Diego Luna's Rev-9, as they call it, they're not calling them the T-1000, even though he's essentially an exact copy. His Rev-9 character was good, and I thought the concept was cool, like separating from an exoskeleton, but honestly, I thought the T-800 looked better than that exoskeleton that he separated from. In the movie, his character, like, separates into two antibodies, essentially, and there's like that robotic cyborg exoskeleton, and then there's Diego Luna's likeness on a character. And that concept is absolutely awesome, but the exoskeleton looked kind of unfinished. It had like a chopped off head, and I don't know, it just wasn't that great to me. It wasn't as good as the T-800, or not as good as the T-1000, because the T-1000 is like a full body, liquid metal body. Like, and this wasn't quite full, but it operated exactly like a T-1000. And the T-1000, as we know from T2, morphs into whatever it kills, touches, what have you. Here, he did the same, but we never actually saw him morph on screen. I was unimpressed with the graphics of that character, because I did like Diego Luna. I liked that he conveyed so much anger and anguish for barely having any dialogue. I think he's probably got about 20 lines in the movie, so I did like his character. Just didn't like that they didn't take it up a notch with the graphics. Next point, and this is unfortunately another negative. There was a lot of lore erased to be replaced by incredibly similar lore. Let me use an example. I don't want to say anything got deleted, but names got shifted around, and it was the exact same thing. Like, like it's if you take an apple and you say, hey, we changed the future, so this is not called an apple anymore, it's called an orange now. That's kind of where I was getting here, and actually, Grace Randolph put it perfectly. Essentially, it felt like Terminator Light. Like, why are we deleting and erasing terms only to replace them with very similar ones and different terms that have the same meaning? It just really was unnecessary to delete lore that had been built up and established for so long. So those are kind of my biggest issues with the movie. And my last point was that at times the movie actually was character heavy. And I know this sounds weird coming from somebody who absolutely loves characters. It was character heavy. There were a lot of characters on screen during a lot of scenes that didn't have a lot to do. You got a T-800 Arnold, you've got Sarah Connor, you've got this new character, Grace, who is a half human, half cyborg. You've got Dani, you've got the Rev-9. That's 5 really integral characters to the story, and they were all 5 together a lot. And that doesn't give a lot of action for everyone in one scene at one time. So while some characters were getting a lot of action during scenes, other characters were kind of just standing around or kind of just being lackadaisical. Like, there was just too many characters. And this is another little nitpick and a teeny tiny spoil. Arnold saved these ladies maybe a few too many times for this to be a women-led film. But I digress. I won't dive into too many details there. Now I want to get into the good points. Let's get to the good, shall we? Man, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is one of his best in years. This was actually one of his better roles. Linda Hamilton, what a great return to Blockbuster. Like, she played Sarah Connor perfectly. Like, I felt like I never even closed the book on that chapter. So bringing her back in and having her act exactly the same and be that Sarah Connor we all know and love, that badass with that fucking awesome rifle, and she's just a badass again. And you can't take that away from her. She'll never forget that. Mackenzie Davis, wow. What a performance. Like, I was very impressed by her half human, half cyborg Terminator thingy. I really enjoyed her acting as well. She really went all the way. She was dedicated to Dani. Her performance was just so dramatic in the best of ways. And she just played such a drastic peacekeeping character. And I really appreciated that. I thought she was great. This could possibly even be a breakout role for her. I mean, the cast, solid, but there's just so many major characters that it's like, gosh, there's not a lot for them to do. And there were some great action sequences. While they were kind of recycled from earlier Terminator films, I still really enjoyed them. They were thrilling, they were fun, but after a good chunk of the movie, there just wasn't enough of them. Like, they kept popping up in little bits and pieces here and there, but there wasn't enough time for them. There wasn't enough time for this action and this adrenaline to breathe. And that's kind of shocking coming from Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, and James Cameron producing, who was on the first 2 Terminator movies. It just seems like he needed to be back in the director's chair, and maybe there was a little bit of clash going on there. But all in all, Terminator Dark Fate is the best since T2. That's not saying a lot, admittedly. Unfortunately, the only other movies since T2 have been T3, Genesis, and Salvation. Not in that order. 3, Salvation, then Genesis, and I mean, they were all pretty atrocious films. Feel free to disagree. I thought 3 was okay, and then the other 2, atrocious films. But this was decent. If I had to change one thing, I would probably change Dani's character a little bit. She was just a little useless in spots, and I thought that she could have been used a lot more brilliantly. Like, she could have actually had a lot more interaction with the T-800, and maybe even the T-800 started following her commands. There just wasn't enough for her to do. Let me know what you think about Terminator Dark Fate. Were you a fan? Did you see it yet? And if you have, let us know down in the comments what you think. Like, do you think this is the best since T2? Do you think it could have been way better? Do you think one of the other sequels or reboots, remakes, whatever, do you think one of those other properties of Terminator is better than this one, because I think it does do the best job after T2. But there are still problems, and it just brings up a whole separate conversation of where do we go from here, Hollywood? Like, when are the sequels and prequels and reboots, remakes, when are we going to stop and start coming up with new, fresh ideas? Because, unfortunately, I feel a little left out. I feel like the stakes weren't huge in this movie. If I had to give it a rating out of 10, I would have to go with a 6.5. Probably a solid 6.5, maybe inch towards a 7, but it's not T1 or T2, and I didn't expect it to be, but it just doesn't really live up to that Terminator name from the first 2 films at least. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comments, and also let me know what your rankings are for the Terminator movies, because I know I have a pretty convoluted ranking, which that video is coming as well very soon. So let us know your thoughts on this, guys, and we'll see you next time on Geekly Goods. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow Geekly Goods on all social media platforms, and grab something from our store. We take $1 of every purchase and donate it to arts education to keep arts in the classrooms. We'll see you next time.